Welcome to Danger, the channel where we dive into the world's most chilling true crime stories. Please like, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post something. The case of Audrii Cunningham is a deeply tragic true crime story that unfolded in Livingston, Texas, in early 2024, and it quickly captured national attention due to the shocking circumstances surrounding her disappearance and the devastating outcome of the investigation. Audrii Danielle Cunningham was an 11-year-old girl described by family, friends, and teachers as cheerful, social, and full of energy. She lived in a mobile home community with her father and family members, where life appeared on the surface to be relatively normal. However, the environment around her included multiple adults with varying levels of access to the property, including Don Stephen McDougal, a 40-year-old family acquaintance who lived in a trailer nearby. McDougal had a criminal history that included previous offenses, yet he remained within close proximity to the family and had interactions within the community. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Audrii's life followed her usual routine. She attended school, spent time at home, and prepared for the normal rhythm of daily life that any child her age would expect. There was nothing initially that indicated danger was imminent. However, investigators later focused heavily on the relationships and access points within her home environment, particularly the presence of McDougal, whose movements and interactions would become central to the entire case. On the morning of February 15, 2024, Audrii was expected to leave her home and walk to her school bus stop, something she had likely done many times before. That morning, she left the home but never made it onto the bus. When she failed to arrive at school, concern began to build quickly. At first, it may have seemed like a delay or miscommunication, but as the minutes and then hours passed, it became clear something was seriously wrong. Her family reported her missing, and law enforcement in Polk County, Texas, immediately escalated the situation due to her age and the circumstances of her disappearance. An Amber Alert was issued, and within a short time, the case became a full-scale emergency search operation. Authorities responded rapidly, deploying search teams, helicopters, K-9 units, and volunteers to comb through wooded areas, neighborhoods, and waterways surrounding Livingston. Investigators also began retracing her final known movements, interviewing family members, neighbors, and anyone who may have seen her that morning. Very early in the investigation, suspicion began to focus on individuals who had close access to Audrii, particularly Don Stephen McDougal. His presence on the property, combined with his criminal background and proximity to the victim, made him a person of interest almost immediately. As investigators examined evidence, they began uncovering critical details that shifted the direction of the case. Surveillance information, digital tracking, and witness statements helped establish a timeline that placed McDougal in key locations around the time Audrii disappeared. One of the most significant early discoveries was a backpack believed to belong to Audrii, which was found near a dam and river area. This discovery dramatically escalated concerns, as it suggested she may have been taken to or near that location. As a result, search efforts became heavily focused on the Trinity River and surrounding areas, with law enforcement conducting extensive water and land searches. The investigation intensified further as authorities continued to analyze McDougal's movements. Reports indicated inconsistencies in his statements, and evidence began to contradict the narrative he initially provided. His vehicle became a key piece of the investigation, as investigators worked to understand where it had traveled during the critical timeframe. Phone data and other forensic evidence helped narrow down search areas, leading authorities to concentrate their efforts in specific parts of the river system. Just 5 days after Audrii was reported missing, on February 20, 2024, authorities made the heartbreaking discovery they had been working tirelessly to avoid. Her body was recovered from the Trinity River. This moment transformed the case from a missing persons investigation into a confirmed homicide. The community, already holding on to hope for a safe outcome, was devastated by the confirmation of her death. The medical examiner later determined that Audrii died from blunt force trauma to the head, officially ruling her death as a homicide. This finding confirms that her death was the result of violence and not an accident or natural cause. Following the discovery, law enforcement moved swiftly to arrest Don Stephen McDougal. He was charged with capital murder, and the case against him began to solidify through a combination of physical evidence, investigative findings, and his own statements. As pressure mounted and evidence accumulated, McDougal eventually confessed to the crime, acknowledging his involvement in Audrei's death. His confession aligned with the direction investigators had been building toward throughout the investigation, confirming their suspicions and closing the gap on unanswered questions. In court proceedings, McDougal ultimately pleaded guilty to capital murder, avoiding a full trial. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never be released back into society. The legal resolution brought a form of closure to the criminal case, but for Audrei's family and the community, the emotional impact remained profound and long-lasting. The aftermath of the case sparked widespread discussion about child safety, particularly regarding individuals with criminal histories who still maintain access to family environments. It raised difficult questions about trust, supervision, and how quickly a routine situation can turn into tragedy. Vigils were held in Audrei's memory, and she was remembered not only as a victim of a devastating crime but as a young girl whose life was full of potential that was abruptly and violently taken away. Ultimately, the case of Audrii Cunningham remains one of the most heartbreaking examples of how danger can exist in familiar spaces. What began as a normal school morning ended in a nationwide search and a devastating discovery that left an entire community grieving. Her story continues to be shared not only to remember her life, but also as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and protection for vulnerable children in everyday environments. Thank you for watching. If you want more factual and respectful true crime content, please like, subscribe, and share. And as always, stay safe.